Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Skyblue Reviews. In today's episode, I'm going to review a movie that has been currently released in theaters. The name of the movie is Dark Phoenix. Dark Phoenix revolves around Jean Grey, played by Sophie Turner, who, as the movie goes on, slowly becomes the title of villain, or anti-villain to be more precise. But that's so much for the story, let's just get straight to the point. Out of all the XMen films that I've seen, Dark Phoenix is the worst XMen movie that I've seen so far. And when I say worst, I don't mean like the least favorite. I mean, it's bad. It's genuinely bad. And I want to be honest. I am very... It really makes me sad because I've been a vocal supporter of the XMen film series for a very long time. The XMen are my favorite superheroes out of all the superheroes out there, even more so than Batman, even more so than Spider-Man and Superman, etc, etc. And when I've heard that Disney bought 20th Century Fox, I was very furious about that because, well, Disney is most likely just reboot the X-Men. And, of course, a lot of MCU fans are going to be excited about that because, yay, we are going to have the X-Men now in the MCU, but honestly, that is just going to screw around with the continuity. It's just going to contradict the law that has previously been established with the MCU. Unless, of course, they're actually going to feature some alternative universes or something like that, which wouldn't be out of the question. However, if they would actually introduce the X-Men into, the regular universe, the ones that we are, the same universe that pretty much every MCU film has been a part of. Well, that simply wouldn't really make all that much sense. I mean, they could barely write any good excuse as to why the MCU suddenly has mutants in there. Or maybe they do, I don't know. Maybe they managed to write a good reason as to why there hadn't been any mutants before. I don't know. But okay, let's just talk about the movie itself. The reason why I don't like this film, well, for one, that would be the tone. This is, just like with Logan, this is definitely one of the most bleakest. It's one of the bleakest films coming from the X-Men universe, the X-Men cinematic universe. However, unlike with Logan, it feels kinda unwarranted because with unearned, undeserved, it doesn't really work there, unlike with Logan, because the movie Logan was intended to be a send-off for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine. With Dark Phoenix, however, they've originally intended to turn... This was supposed to be like the first film of a new planned trilogy. However, since Disney has bought the rights for the X-Men, Fox, 20th Century Fox in general, that trilogy has been scrapped. And that pretty much led to a huge problem and that's the next problem, and this is also the additional problem regarding as to why I am not quite keen on the tone. The reason behind that is that, well, there's barely any closure. There's barely any closure to pretty much anything that has been established beforehand. Questions that most people kept on asking with most of the previous X-Men films. They're left unanswered. There have been certain plot points that have been completely unresolved. And this just makes this film feel incomplete. And yeah, if this movie actually, let's just say, unless of course New Mutants actually is going to be released someday. I mean, it has been delayed to April 2020, and you know, it's already a pretty bad sign that New Mutants has been delayed yet again. I mean, it was originally intended to be released like late 2017, I guess, or early maybe even, but it has then delayed all over again. And you know, it's usually not a good sign. That's usually not a good sign. Because it's either not going to be a good movie, it's either going to be a terrible movie, because movies that suffer from such production issues usually don't end up being good once they are released, or maybe it doesn't even get released at all. Maybe they are not able to finish this movie, which, you know, wouldn't really surprise me, considering how Simon Kinberg, the director and writer of Dark Phoenix, he has called Dark Phoenix as a finale to the series. But as I've said, there's barely any closure to it, because considering how this movie wasn't really originally intended to be a finale in the first place, a lot of plot points that had been established both in this and previous other movies had been left unresolved. And in case Disney is going to reboot the X-Men, sad, unresolved plot lines remain to be unresolved forever. Like, yeah, I'm sorry for, yeah, I know I'm rambling around, but I'm not really good at talking without a script. I apologize for that. Okay, so that is the first problem. Another problem, next to the bleak tone, well, it feels unpleasant. The whole movie had just this unpleasant feel to it. I mean, I will always be a vocal supporter of both Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and pretty much the DCEU altogether. But this movie, I think this movie kind of gave me same type of reaction that some people had with Man of Steel. Its tone felt too unnecessarily dark and depressing, and it just made this movie pretty tough to watch. Okay, what are there other problems? You know, it's a bit hard to say, but okay, does this movie have some good moments? Definitely. Some of the action scenes are pretty good. The acting is outstanding, as you can always expect that from most of the actors. Like, I will say, I don't know if Simon Kinberg has ever directed a movie beforehand. If this is like his directorial debut, then I gotta say that he did a decent job if it comes to, you know, directing all the actors. However, this is also one of those sad examples where good acting can't save a bad movie. it's not an awful movie, but some of the great moments, like the acting, some of the great action set pieces, and well, a couple of other things that I'm not really able to recall right now. Well, they are unfortunately not, they can't save this movie. One of the problems, well, there are certain plot points, not only from previous films, that have been left unresolved, also a few others that this movie doesn't really delve further upon. Like again, I don't want to spoil anything, but Jean Grey pretty much confronts a close person of hers she hasn't met for an eternity. And well, that scene doesn't really last for very long. You also get the feeling that they went dark just for the sake of being dark. I mean, if I should ever consider doing a review to this movie, and with review, I actually mean dedicating an episode of Movie Rehab, I'll try my damnedest to elaborate much better on my thoughts on this, because I'm just telling you my thoughts out of the blue, and my apologies if I'm not really able to explain myself well enough. This movie is incredibly bleak, but not in a good way. Like, with movies, like say Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, and well, Logan, and even a few other X-Men movies to an extent, they deserve their bleak tone because they balance that out with a great script. And even though those movies had their incredibly dark and depressing moments, they still had something more uplifting to them. I mean, with Logan, it's pretty close of not having anything uplifting in there at all, but even that movie does have somewhat of a justification for its incredibly bleak tone. With this movie, however, I just didn't feel it. This is by far the only X-Men movie that I really don't like. And well, I'm just going to say that I still love the X-Men film series, but let's just say I'm just gonna say I don't really recommend this movie to you. Maybe you're going to enjoy it, I don't know, but it didn't really do much for me, and I don't really think that this movie serves as great closure. The whole movie, I was just waiting for something great to happen, but some of those great moments I had to wait for those moments for like the last third act. And sad amazing moments just prevent this movie from being awful. But at the end of the day, Dark Phoenix is not a good movie. So that's all I have to say about this film. However, next time I'm going to review something more uplifting. Until then, I wish you a great day. Bye.